My name's Christopher Hampton. I'm standing here in the courtyard of the Freud house, where the Freud Museum now is, in the Berggasse in Vienna. Just over 100 years ago, Carl Jung came here for the first time to meet Freud. They had corresponded for several years, starting with a letter that Jung had sent to Freud about the successful treatment of a young Russian patient called Sabina Spielrein, because Freud was looking for somebody who was outside the Vienna circle, somebody who was not Jewish, because psychoanalysis was subject to a great deal of anti-Semitic prejudice, and somebody young and vigorous to carry on his work as he saw it. Freud had a problem with close friendships with his colleagues. They tended to be very intense and not last very long. The relationship with Jung lasted a little longer than usual, followed the same pattern.
When did the breach happen between Freud and Jung, and was it over this young lady?
Jung began an affair with Sabina Spielrein, this young patient with whom he had successfully cured of hysteria, and was anxious for Freud not to know this. It became clear that Jung was lying about his relationship with Sabina Spielrein. So the beginnings of the trust between them began to fracture.
And how did it affect the woman? How did it affect Sabina Spielrein to be lied about?
Sabina Spielrein was one of the forgotten people of psychoanalysis. She was a remarkable talent. The quotation up the stairs towards the Freud Museum, which deals with the death instinct and the love instinct, was an idea that was actually given to Freud by Sabina Spielrein.
What moved you to tell this obscure story?
I was approached to write this film for Julia Roberts' company.
Now, Julia did a film for you. She starred in a movie for you with Stephen Frears.
Yes, I'd worked with her on a
Was
film.
it Julia Roberts who found the property and wanted to play this character?
Yes, Julia Roberts wanted to play Sabina Spielrein, so that the first version of the story that I worked on was called Sabina and dealt mostly with the story from her point of view. And certainly, I think Julia's company was not anxious for her to put her feet in these waters. The film sat there in the manner of films that are not going to be made, and Tiana Alexandra-Silliphant persuaded me that it might make a good stage play.
How did I do that?
By saying that the material was too good to waste, and I'd actually spent about 2 years researching it, and that the story was really extremely interesting and probably would work in the theatre. And eventually, when I thought about it, it occurred to me that you were right.
It took a while to convince you, Christopher, because you didn't think Julia Roberts would give you the rights.
In the course of adapting the piece for the theatre, first of all, we had to get permission from 20th Century Fox, and most of all from Julia Roberts, who released her participation in the film and to let me write the play.
Would you say that I was instrumental? Because yes. I think I'm made associate producer with no pay on a film that I've been on for 16 years, and I'm just so thrilled that it's being made with wonderful actors. So were you on the set?
Yes, I was on the set, and watching how David Cronenburg operated was very, very instructive and interesting.
Can I flip you?
You can flip me anytime.
Flip me.
Yeah.
Can we turn off the...
Oh, darling, wait.
Okay, I wasn't allowed to talk to David on the set. How did you find the play? How did you find The Talking Cure?
Do you remember how I found that? I can't remember how I found that. It might have been because Rafe was in it.
Did you see the play? You only read it. You hadn't seen it.
I never saw it, no. And I actually desperately looked for stills and stuff on the net to just sort of get a feel for it. But it was a subject that was just so, this felt so right and so interesting and so intriguing. Because I didn't know much about Jung. I knew a fair amount about Freud, but not Jung. And then it got more and more fascinating. And I was very intrigued by the play, and then very intrigued by Christopher, just because he had written this play and he was not very old. So.
All right.
We're gonna meet.
Where are you showing? Wherever you're showing it next, we're gonna meet next.
Okay, fantastic.
What is the age of the character who starts out, and who plays the character now?
Sabina Spielrein was 19 when she came to Jung as a patient. And the part is now being played by Keira Knightley in the David Cronenburg film.
I was on the set, and Keira Knightley's bodyguard stopped us from taking any photos on the set, so we have very few pictures, but the few we have we'll share with you.
Sabina was a very important patient for Jung. She was a conspicuous success. He treated her for several months and gave an account of the cure in considerable detail, so that a great bond was forged between him and Sabina. The usual processes of transference and counter-transference, where the patient falls in love with the doctor falls in love with the patient, occurred.
And that was a no-no, right?
Yes.
Then and now. So was that a cause for dismissal?
The rules were a little looser in those days, and in fact, technically, Jung did not have an affair with Sabina while she was his patient. She decided to stay in Zurich and study psychoanalysis herself. Even though the guidelines were not so formal in those days, it was obviously not a good situation for a doctor to be having an affair with his patient. So one of the legalistic ways he got around this was by saying he hadn't been paid by her, so she wasn't his patient.
There's a very powerful scene where she comes in and pays him, and she is upset that she was his lover because she wanted him to acknowledge her. Isn't that a woman's right?
Yes, of course, but he, Jung was in a delicate situation. He'd done something that was not right.
Did she turn him in? Did she tell Freud?
She told Freud. Jung denied everything. Freud believed Jung, and then finally Sabina persuaded Jung to acknowledge what had happened and to tell Freud that he had misled Freud. So
how did she do that? How do you know this? What are your source materials?
All this is fully documented, so with letters and diaries and so on and so forth. So there's nothing in the film that is invented except perhaps the last scene where I wanted them to meet at the end of the story, by which time Sabina had married a Russian doctor and was pregnant by him. And Jung was on the verge of a nervous breakdown just before the First World War, which lasted for 5 years, out of which he emerged stronger and able to turn himself into the world figure he subsequently became. The unknown thing previously about Sabina was that she was the person who brought Freud and Jung together by simply being the patient successfully treated by Jung with Freud's method. But she was also, in many ways, the person who split the two apart.
How do you feel about working with Keira Knightley and Viggo Mortenson, who plays Freud?
Well, Keira Knightley I've worked with before on a film called Atonement, and I really admire her very, very much. I've been aware of her existence I worked with her father in a play when I was very young.
And working with Viggo, star of Lord of the Rings. Viggo would love to be remembered for 2 more films done previously with David Cronenburg, so this will be his 3rd, won't it?
It will, yes. And he is a man who takes his research very, very seriously. He went around Vienna to old bookshops to buy old books that might, he thought, have come from the Freud library, which was, of course, ransacked by the Nazis after Freud had to run away in 1938. When I met to talk to him about the part, he was wearing the full makeup of the full costume and makeup, and looked remarkably like Freud. So,
isn't Viggo a bit tall to play Freud? Freud was a little man, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Viggo was very aware of this, and at one point suggested that he should stand on the set with his legs wide open, so that he would be a little shorter than Michael. But I'm sure it's been astutely organised. I mean, Michael Fassbinder is in fact as tall, if not a tiny bit taller than Viggo's.
Keira fans want to know, you go from Atonement, Pride and Prejudice, Atonement, and of course people know her from the pirate movie.
Well, she's playing a Russian girl, very, very sick at the beginning of the story. hysterical.
Mad, disturbed.
Absolutely.
Deranged.
Absolutely violently disturbed. And so she has a big journey to make, and it's a big challenge for any actress at this part, and is the sort of emotional center of the film.
How was the money raised in these times for an art film?
The money was raised by Jeremy Thomas, who has an extraordinary track record, and he's worked with Bertolucci and Oshima and a number of very distinguished directors, and he manages to raise money for these edgy, difficult subjects. We feel that this kind of film is an endangered species. I mean, this film that comes in between, around $15 million, between $15 and $20 million, a drama. These are the films that Hollywood is now refusing to finance. So we hope that this won't be one of the last of the species, but it looks a little bit that way at the moment.
Well, thank you very, very much, Christopher.
Thank you.
And good luck with The Talking Cure.
Thank you very much.
Which I am now one of your producers.
I know that.
I'm actually a producer on The Talking Cure.
Congratulations.
It is now called A Dangerous Method. And we say goodbye to Christopher Hampton, who must fly back to London. A really good interview.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I think Keira's going to get an Oscar nomination. Are you on with a bet?
No, I would be on your side on that assessment.
You think Keira has a chance? You think you'll be
I do.
nominated?
Me? Yeah.
BAFTA?
No. I shouldn't think so, but you never know.
Who will be nominated?
I have no idea, darling. It's very, very premature and bad luck to talk about these things.
What's good luck?
To not talk about these things.
What's good luck for you?
Being with you.
Freud was a user.
Yeah.
Freud used cocaine to stay awake. I gotta tell Viggo Mortenson this.